Today we're going to be talking about creativity, innovation, management, and how they all kind of interact with each other. I had gone back and was re-listening to E-Myth, E-Myth Revisited, and something's been rattling around in my brain a little bit. Was about management, and so I just kind of revisited because I wanted to kind of refresh my mind about some things. And he talked about what he really talks about is like the franchise systems and how they have to create order in a business, otherwise it's just chaos, and that is 100% true. If you are not intentional with your order, it just naturally turns into chaos. And so I've listened to this book several times in very different phases of my life as a franchise owner. And I've always viewed myself as the entrepreneur, never really the technician in the story. And so what I've come to learn is I'm currently wearing a technician's hat, but it's not a hat that I'm trying to wear. It's just a hat that you wear from time to time as an entrepreneur. You know, there is a doing it phase in your life in a business, and there's a more of a strategic phase. And so I'm spending a lot of time in stores, one store primarily, and it's kind of got me back into my roots about how I operate. And I basically started as a manager, sandwich artist, worked my way up to be a store manager. I found a lot of joy in managing one store. And then I got the bright idea to do more. And what I've been doing lately is it's just been how I've been interacting with my store that I've been in primarily. I've been trying to engage it in a creative way. And in turn, is one of the things that I learned about from the E-Myth book was like, when we talk about creativity versus innovation, creativity is great. You create things and it's new, but where the rubber meets the road is really innovation. Innovation takes that creativity and turns it into action. And so I've just been trying to innovate on a lot of the things that I've been doing, I've historically always done, from a management perspective. And I just keep asking, why am I doing it the way am I doing it? And I keep pushing for that. And the reason I started listening to the E-Myth was I was looking for a story about tradition and management and systems and all that. I'm not sure which book it's from now that I haven't heard it yet. Is basically like there's a family, and the daughter is now the mom, and she has her grandparents and all that. They're making the turkey, and they're doing it a certain way, and they do it this way or that way. I can't remember the exact details, but they do it this way, and this is how, and it's how that's always been done. And one day they asked, and was like, "Why do we do it that way?" It's like, "Oh, we just did it. They just did it that way." It's like one day they just started doing it, many, many years ago. It might have been because I think it was because the oven was broke one day, so they did things differently. And so they did it one time differently, and the people who are now doing that tradition weren't aware of the choice that was made. And so they kept perpetuating this, what they thought was a tradition, but it really was only just a blip in the whole act of what really was happening, preparing like the Thanksgiving dinner and stuff. And so I really have been like looking at that management, innovation, challenge, and so everything. I just look at everything I look at it a lot differently, not just a little bit differently, about how things change or how they should change. And it's one of the there's a key point I was talking about my family is like one of the mistakes I've made as we grew was as we added more locations, I became like an area manager of sorts, and I just tried to manage people's performance, and what I've really learned was just managing people's performance, even leading and teaching doesn't really necessarily get the results you're looking for unless you're really engaged at the level you're trying to manage. You can't be like, well, I'm the area manager, I'm above them, and I'm just managing them. I don't really need to know what they're going through. And it's a mistake I've made in my life, and one that I now recognize as a critical mistake. And so that's what I'm working towards, innovation. So as I look at like a lot of the systems that especially franchisors have, or even MUOs, it's just taking that step back and saying, are the levels I have in a business enhancers of the business, or are they just levels that just create extra bureaucracy or extraness that doesn't really impact your business? And that area manager role is so difficult because you don't want to be the super manager who does everything, which is where I'm currently residing until I can get a manager in this one location. But I understand where I'm trying to get to, so it's not like I'm like a naive super manager. I just understand that's the role I have to play at the moment until some things come online. But also being able to take a step back and be strategic. And so I've been trying to, as I take my kids to school in the morning, I come home and I just sit and try to think. I listen to some relaxing music or not so relaxing music. And just like have a notebook, just trying to like, not even like unwind, but like I'm approaching my day in a more thoughtful way. So when it comes to like the innovation in management, I'm viewing it a lot differently, so I'm approaching it differently. So, and I think that's the problem within Subway right now as a brand. It's the brand I'm in right now as a franchisee, and they have managers of franchise performance, and they have directors of franchise performance, and they have all these levels. But It's such a waste of energy and time to have those systems, because my view is that Subway's trying to put this system into place, but it's such a uh, window dressing type of application of management. It doesn't have a real connection to anything. They abdicate their responsibility on upholding standards in their stores, and they farm it out to Stereotech. I know I'm getting a little personal here, but it's something that I'm seeing, and it's a problem. And I feel like Subway has to make a decision about who they're going to be and what they want to be. And it requires an investment, real time investment, and it's being like, okay, this franchisee is not doing well. Let's just send them an angry letter. Let's send them an angry email. They might be working 80 hours a week in their store, but they have time for emails. Instead of giving a call, like, hey, let's talk. Let's meet up. Let me come to your store. Let's sit down and talk to you. Let me work beside you and learn your struggles. And I feel like Subway's at that point where they're we're in a private equity world right now, and so they view management in a different way. And so it's like, if we just do these things, we'll be fine. Like, that's, it's management, but it's not management that revives a company. And I wonder a lot about Subway. I think it has a lot of potential. I mean, I look around at the other competitors, and Jersey Mike's puts out a good product. I go there occasionally just to kind of see what they're doing. And I don't, at least in my area, there's one franchise owner. I never really had a bad experience. It's generally very consistent. Jimmy John's, I rarely see them anymore, and I really don't eat there because they're so infrequent. And all the other sandwich shops, I'm just not interested. There's not many of them, so I don't really stop in and check on them in the regions I'm in. And maybe I'm biased, but when we do things right at Subway, it is a top-notch product. Like, we can make great bread, we can make great sandwiches. As long as all the components are right, we can make great things. And I 100% believe in that. I think we are on par with Jersey Mike's in terms of what our product is, as long as it's a consistent product that we're getting. I think veggies this year has probably been the biggest challenge, and the growing of the produce has been so challenging, and we've seen it on the front lines. I know I'm riffing here a little bit off the main topic of innovation and management, but I'll try to tie it together here. I don't know what the word for innovative management would be. It's not leadership. That's not really addressing what we're trying to do. And it's not necessarily frontline management. It's a combination of a lot of different things. And I don't have the word for it yet. I don't know if it's been talked about. I mean, I've listened to enough Peter Drucker and a lot of the other management books out there and try to understand my role, who I'm trying to be, and what I'm trying to get to. And but I know it has to be different. The way we do things can't be the same as it's always been. And I feel like I need to build a new company that's not just a franchisee company. I'm looking to build something that's a little different. Um, Still own Subways in a capacity, but I'm viewing what I view as a bridge for franchisors to become better franchisors. Because a lot of times, especially new franchisors, they don't even know what they're doing. And if you're an older franchisor, you might know what you're doing, but maybe you've gone off path, and you think you're doing what the industry standard is with management and how you manage your franchisees and how you do that. You're following an industry standard, but the question is the industry standard the right one? And I don't know if that question ever gets asked in any department within Subway, because they don't really have to experience that pain. Some departments might. I'm not gonna speak to saying they don't feel the pain. There might be pain felt, but it's just different. Subway needs more innovation, and most franchisors need more innovation. Deep, consistent innovation. If you want to have a company or a brand that is always moving forward and creating its best version of itself. So this video's kind of gone into maybe 2 or 3 of the videos I probably would have made, but I'm driving, so I just want to kind of talk here a little bit. I want to share that thought that I see so many things inside as a franchisee that I always scratch my head as a franchisee, going in a lot of different departments, between catering to remodeling to equipment to operations to food development, real estate. There's so many things I look at and I'm like, but why? Why do we do it this way? Why do we accept things this way? Just because everybody else in the world's doing it this way, why are we doing it this way? We're one of the largest franchise brands out there, and we're just accepting reality as we just have to do what everybody else is doing. And I'm not saying you have to be fanatical, change everything all the time. It's just saying maybe the processes we have, we need to revisit from time to time. Every 5 years, be like, we're going to review, do a deep review of our remodeling process or our vendor selection process, and are we getting the best value? Is that 900-page operations manual truly helping the franchisees in the system? Or is it just a checkbox to say we have an operations manual that we never refer to, we never help our franchisees learn anything? I've lamented about Subway used to print the operations manual and a daily operations manual every year. They'd send it out. And probably about a decade ago, they stopped doing that. maybe a little under a decade. It went digital, which is understandable. There's changes that happen throughout the year, um, corrections. So it's hard to keep up with it, and it's a major cost. But one of the big things I liked about having a paper manual in my store that I could open up an ops manual, I could just like, it's a slower day as a franchisee or a manager. I can look at it. I can flip it open. I can learn something new or refresh my memory. And everything's digital, kind of just hides away. And so I've done a lot of work in my stores to make that accessible. And so there's a QR code for the ops manual right in my store. Walk in. If you have a question about something, and what's great about the ops manual now is there's a search function, and it works great if you know how to use it. But it has to be accessible to the front line. And I've done it in my stores. I don't know how many other franchises have done it in their stores, how to make it accessible. But Subway, I have an MFP, and they might see it, but it doesn't get run up the chain. It's a lot of it's just like a wall of, let's suppress as much as possible the front lines and the managers and the franchisees who are out there working. Their innovation isn't important. What's important is that they have complete and full compliance to however we want them to do it. Just be automatons who don't think. The problem is when the ops manual has just missing gaps or no improvement in its systems for decades. You look at it and say, well, that doesn't work the way it used to work. The financial measures don't work the same way they used to work when minimum wage was $7.25. A lot of the numbers just don't math out, but it never gets updated. It never just reflect different circumstances that are going on in the business. And now that it's in a digital form, you think we could make it better that way. And so this is kind of the talking point to franchisors out there, or businesses are out there. You can't say I've done an operations manual and say I'm good, I don't have to think about this ever again. You really have to take that mental attitude, put it on the calendar even, of like, we are going to review our processes, these processes throughout the years. Every year we're looking at something different. Every sort of a rotation cycle, so that we're never settling for the status quo. And there's a lot of things we do in Subway. They're just like, we do them because and I have been around for long enough. I've known when it changed. I've been around when deli paper was introduced. U-gouge went from U-gouge to the hinge cut. Sauces were in the middle. Now they're at the end. Toasting ovens. Before that, there's so many things that have changed throughout the years that we might have done, and same with like slicing meats. That was an innovation. It was an industry standard innovation, but they innovated and said, you know what? We're not going to keep doing what we've always done. We're going to get back to some roots and slice our own meats. But they thought that was it. They checked that box and said, we got the slicers, we're all done. We don't need to think about this anymore. And it's really sad. I'm frustrated as a franchisee in that they had this innovation and then they just stopped. So they said, we're going to slice our deli meats. And then they did. And then they said, whatever. There hasn't been any new sliced meats that, now that we have a slicer, now that we have the equipment, we're not even utilizing it in a new way. And so there's that. There's the ultimately, if you're a franchisor or you're a business owner and you want to have a robust, thriving business that continues to grow year over year, you have to have managers who are innovators, who are going to challenge and say, is this the best version of ourselves? Is this the best way that we can do things? And it really, really requires not just talking to people, but working alongside people to really see where those pain points are. I was showing, just in closing, I was showing one of my newer employees who has like 7-8 years experience, some things I've been doing that I don't do as sort of our standard operating procedures. I test things, I try to innovate, try to create something that's different, but I don't try to book the trend. I don't try to make problems for my franchisor. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to offer solutions instead of just saying, I have an idea, you guys should do this. I'm like, no, I have an idea, I'm gonna spec it out for you, I'm gonna show you how it's done, I'm gonna innovate for you, and I'm gonna give you the option to say that's a good idea or not, or I get completely ignored, which is very common. But I was showing this one method of how we could prep things, our chicken and our tuna and all that, steak, and how it could be different. And it's like, wow, that's actually innovative, because it's like it's a different interaction, a different way of doing things that can expand the menu and can open up the menu to more customers, because it's not the way we've always done things. And I sent it in a couple of years ago, and I sent it as high as I could, but sometimes it's not to the right person. And there's a lot of innovative ideas I put out there, and sometimes I just feel like I get patted on the head and said, "That's nice, franchisee. Let the adults manage the Subway business. We have all the answers." And so don't do that. Listen, work alongside people. One of my favorite things to do is I like to work and talk. I like to, or a walk and talk, or work and talk. And I really feel like people start to open up more when you're walking with them or you're working alongside them. Like, conversations just starts to happen naturally versus just sitting at a table and trying to just tell us what you want to hear, because you don't really get to hear the real stuff. Working that floor. And I would say this, I'm talking about this from a franchisor to franchisee level, but I also view it as the multiple levels of the SMO system, or in a franchise system. A CEO doesn't necessarily have to go down to the franchisee level, but he probably could go down 1 or 2, 3 levels and spend time with them and see what their challenges are, what their issues are, get some insight from working alongside them and seeing how they interact with the world, to give them the context to make the decisions as a CEO versus only getting information from that level below them, their most senior directors, who are filtering things from the level below them, who's filtering things from the level below them, from it's the Sam Walton way. It's the Fred DeLuca way. Get in the stores, see what's happening. You will understand so much more, as I'm recognizing in my own business, by just engaging and being that leader of innovation and not just a manager of performance.